Hi, Diane.
Hi, Imran.
How's it
How are you?
going?
It's going, it's funny because you would think that it's going slowly
Yeah,
because we are kind of linked in, locked in.
yeah.
But for some reason, the days fly. And, but it's a very, listen, nobody expected this to happen. Nobody is quite sure what to say, what to know. But what I do know is that since we are all forced into this pause, I think this will never happen again, hopefully. And we should take advantage of this forced pause for both as individual and as business to think about revisit your your life, visit your priorities, revisit your business model, and it's an opportunity because the world stopped to change things, which is always impossible while things are moving, and to push the reset button.
Yeah. Well, I want to get into all of that in a minute, but first, tell us, where are you and how have you been spending your quarantine?
I am home. I am in my home in Connecticut that I bought when I was 26 years old. I bought this house with the first money I made, and I bought this house for my 27th birthday. And I've spent a lot of time here. Clearly, my children lived here for a long time, my grandchildren. But I've never actually, I used to wish, I hope I would be stuck here one day. And so I have time to do all the things I want to do. Well, I am stuck and I still don't have the time to do all the things I want to do.
And why did you dream of being isolated there? Like, what was it about that made you excited?
Well, for me, being alone has never been a punishment. I mean,
Yeah.
I actually love being alone. I mean, to be alone doesn't mean to be lonely. And so I need the solitude. I need the silence. I need all of that to be able not to lose myself. So that, but of course, I have a garden. I have a place that I can walk. So I'm extremely privileged, and I realize that it's not the same when you're in a city.
Yeah, no, it's obviously been such a, an unexpected moment with unexpected moments of reflection. So, tell me a little bit, with so much time on your hands, what are the things that you've been thinking about?
Well, it's funny because, for one thing, I am writing a book, and the title of my book is Own It. Because now that I'm an old woman, I can tell you that the secret of life is owning it, right? You own your imperfection, they become your assets. You own your vulnerability, it becomes your strength. And I'm doing it in the form of dictionary with words. So it started to be, kind of a frivolous book. I mean, kind of a fun book with mantras but fun. And of course, with what happened now, it's the same book and it's the same everything, but I realize how serious actually it is. And by the way, you could be serious and be fun also, but that's the thing.
Yeah. So in the book, Own It, can you give us a bit of a preview? Like, what are some of the things, the serious things that
Well,
you've been reflecting on?
for example, now, I was, I mean, in business right now, everybody has to make terrible decisions, and you always don't want to make them, and you think it this way or you're thinking that way. But what happened is that one day I woke up and I said, what do you mean? I mean, you're writing a book called Own It. So you got to own the situation and make the decision that are the right decision and not always the easy decision. So, and other than that, it's, I mean, you know, I write my diary, but I write my diary anyway, but I don't write as much as I should. I mean, the days go very, very fast because I am making adjustment to my business. I am changing things. I am figuring things out. So I spend a lot of time on the phone and trying to make sense of it.
Yeah. Have you found yourself connecting more to other people, ironically? Because I found that even though I'm isolated and I can't like physically see people, people have been kind of entering my head, like my old friends, you know, people from college, even from before college. And in a way, this moment has forced us all to connect more with the people that we really care about.
I agree completely, but I am a sucker for intimacy. You know, I don't like small talk. So obviously when you work, if I'm selling, then I'm selling. But if I'm not selling, I really love intimacy. I love to try to talk deep to whoever I talk to. So yes, I am finding people are more ready to do that than normally. So that's why, listen, we are so privileged, you know, because
Yeah.
some people are losing their jobs, so many people don't have roofs, so many, so I don't even want to think about that. But if you have a roof and if you have a garden, I mean, this is a gift because it's giving you time and the currency of time. I mean, time is a currency, and if you can actually use it to be a better person or to be more you, I mean, that is a gift for sure.
Mm. You know, the last time you and I saw each other in person was at the presentation of your Légion d'honneur in Paris,
Right.
which is, you know, it feels like a different, you know,
I mean, it's
century.
like ages ago. And the idea that I brought all these people to New York for this honor, which is a great honor, especially, you know, I'm European, so La Légion d'honneur, which is the civic honor that was created by Napoleon, was a big honor. And Christine Lagarde came and gave it to me and my family, my friends, everybody was there. But I mean, the idea that I brought everybody for that, oh my God, I feel so guilty now. You know, I think so really. And it seems like a century ago, you know?
Yeah. And that
And
was only
all
that
the
was only
fashion
like 5 weeks ago or something, you know?
6 weeks. I mean,
Yeah.
people had all left. They had come from the shows in Milan, and the shows in Paris were going on. I mean, and then my son organized a dinner for my, you know, a smaller dinner the next day on the Eiffel Tower. Out of anything, I mean, the Eiffel Tower got closed a week after that.
Yeah. It's amazing how much the world has changed. So let's talk a little bit about, you know, the fashion industry, because, you know, you used to be the chairperson of the CFDA, and I know the American fashion industry in particular is really close to your heart because you spent so many years leading that organization. What are your observations and thoughts as you see what's happening around you in the US fashion industry? I mean, this week, you know, there's talk of bankruptcies at Neiman Marcus, at Lord and Taylor. You know, there's, as you mentioned earlier, so many people have lost their jobs. Like, what are your thoughts?
It's terrifying. It's terrifying because the whole world was geared towards one thing. Same thing for magazines, you know. I mean, magazines or newspaper are not what they used to be, and therefore they're not getting the advertising, and therefore they're not. It's a different world. But then we have Zoom. and we have social media. So really, every individual and every designer has their own little magazine, you know? And so this is so different than it used to be, but it's devastating. But I think, you know, maybe there was too much, I don't know. But it's devastating for so many industries, even, you know, all the support of the fashion industries,
Yeah.
the events, you know, the events. You're talking about makeup artists and hairdresser and production companies and photographers. And I mean, it's just the whole support system. Everything is being shaken. And, you know, it's paycheck to paycheck, but it's also jobs to jobs. And some of those people had great jobs and great companies, and these people are also consumers. So obviously it's going to affect everything because people don't work. I mean, they're stuck in home, so they don't need this, they don't need that, they don't buy this, they don't buy that. And then after that, well, you know what, maybe I didn't need this, or maybe I live my life differently. So definitely I think Corona will change so many things. By the same token, you see a dolphin in Venice and the blue sky in China, you know, all those cars not going. I mean, is it a sign from the planet? Is it, I mean, you can interpret this in so many ways. So
Yeah.
my advice to designers, my advice, you know, it's always very hard to be in that position because, you know, when I became the head of the CFDA, I was like a mother to everyone, and I wanted it. I wanted that role because I wanted us to be a family, and we were a family. And then, but as the years were progressing, there were a lot of things that I thought had become obsolete, and but I thought that myself, but I didn't know that I have the responsibility to speak for an entire industry. So I remember I went to the Boston group and they did it. You were from, didn't you work in
No,
Boston?
I worked at McKinsey,
All
but
right. Yeah.
yeah.
But and I, you know, and they made a big presentation. And at the end, my only advice to people is say, listen, each one of you have to do what is right for you. Don't look at the old rules. Don't look at that. Just say, why am I a designer? Who do I cater to? Who is my consumer? Without delusional, you know, take a cold look and just say, do I make any sense? Do people need my product? And how can I make my product the best value? Um, and and then do what they can. I don't know. I guess I'm not being helpful at all.
No, 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 no. I mean, I think the advice that people need to find their own path and carve their own future through this situation is very, I think apt. One topic that I think is really pertinent to the audience that we're speaking with today is around sustainability. And one of the things that I see happening in the situation that we're in is that, in a way, coronavirus is an accelerator. There's been conversations in our industry for ages now about sustainability, about technology. And I think some of these things, that issues that have been kind of bubbling under the surface, they're going to become accelerated through this, because situations like this, a crisis forces us to innovate, and there's opportunity in a crisis to find change and to
Totally.
find a path for change.
Totally. And you know, in Chinese, the word I found out, the word crisis has two meanings, two characters: danger and opportunity. And this is both. And the thing is that what I want to remind everyone is that something happens to you that is you think it's the end of your life. You think it's absolutely the worst thing that can happen to you. And it, it's happening. So you got to own it. This is my reality. So how am I going to deal with that? And because of this reality, you may change your life. You may switch things. You may take another opportunity you wouldn't have never taken before that was actually meant to be. And later you will turn around and say, I can't believe it. This is what happened, you know?
Yeah.
And this is what you have to really believe in. We have to, whatever is happening, we have no choice but owning the reality and make the best of it and see where's the light. Where is it that I can do something that deep down maybe that's what I was supposed to do, but I thought I did this or I did that. So the opportunity is what we have to look for, but it's very, very hard. And the other thing is that you have to remember that later, if you become successful and you do well, those horrible moments are the best moments in your book, in your speaking engagement, when you tell people, you know, those will the bad things at the end will end up being your best souvenirs.
Yeah. So Diane, this isn't your first experience of living through a global crisis or a personal crisis. Can you talk to us about one of those moments where you felt like everything was falling apart, but you found an opportunity in what happened and it
Well,
became something you're going to put into your book that you're working on, like a real example?
Well, for example, I didn't have anything worldly that happened that
Yeah.
actually touched me. My mother did. My mother was a prisoner of war. My mother was a victim. I mean, you know, she went to the death camp. She survived. And then again, she told me, you know, the day that she arrived and they shaved them and everything, and it was the soldiers saying, you go right, you go left, you go right, you go left. And she followed her friend without being told where to go. And the guy, the soldier let her go on the other side. And somebody who was in the back, who hadn't moved at all, of a higher rank, got up, whipped my mother, and threw her on the other side. And she looked at him with hate, and she said, "Why? Why?" She never hated anyone. But that man happened to have saved her because the other people were going to the gas chamber. So that's
Mm.
a very, very exaggerated example. But it's the example that my mother told me and that always stayed with me. I mean, I had a lot of ups and I had a lot of downs. And also, what you have to know is that very often when people think you are at the very top and you're being acclaimed and you're in the cover of magazine and everything else, it's all good from the outside, but you actually inside know that things aren't so well because you know the inside. And just the same at other times, people think, oh, she's a has-been, it's over. That's not true either because you already are, you know, on the way out. So, I mean, listen, there is no such thing as going up, 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 success, success. There's no such thing as happy.
Uh-oh. Looks like we lost Diane. I'm sure she will come back soon.
Oh, okay.
There she
I
is.
am.
Okay.
I am back.
You got overly animated and you pressed the wrong button or something.
No, no, no. Somebody called me on the FaceTime.
Ah, okay, okay.
All right. So I don't know what was I saying.
Well, we were talking. I really want to have a concrete example of a low moment, and you found an opportunity in that moment. Because Diane, I'm hearing from so many young people right now, and I can even see some of them are asking questions here, and people are really struggling right now. You know, they're really, young students, graduate students who are supposed to be showing their collections. They can't finish their collections. People who had their first jobs have been laid off. Young designers who were just beginning their careers and starting their businesses, they're running out of money. Like, if you're one of these young people and you're really, feeling like this is the end of the world,
okay,
give us something give us something.
I will tell you that everyone is experiencing this.
Yeah.
Some is just on a very small level because it's the first job and the first layoff. But people with companies are experiencing that too. Everyone is on the verge of bankruptcy. Everyone is running. What happens? So this is happening for everybody. So what to do? What to do? Um, what to do? What to do is be really truly honest with yourself and say, okay, this is not working. I can't do this. So what do I do? Maybe I should be an illustrator. You know how much illustration right now you can take photography. Illustration is going to be a very important thing. Maybe, what did I tell you? I said, write your diary and sell it to Netflix. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, live your experience, live your hard moment,
Yeah.
and be true to it, and write your
Yeah.
diary, and don't pretend it's not there. Don't complain. Don't they just say okay, and maybe things will happen.
Yeah. And focus, I think, on the things that you can control, because there's so much right now that we can't control. Like we can't
Okay,
control the pandemic. We can't control
right.
the
That's right.
infections. We can't,
That's right.
if you worry too much about everything else that's happening, you'll lose sight. Like in this moment,
You're
there
right.
is an opportunity for you to get through it, right?
Okay. A very wise man, Barton Gregorian,
Yeah.
told me an incredible thing, which is his grandmother, who survived the genocide of Armenia, told him, there are two things in life. One is kismet, destiny, and
Yeah.
for that you have no control of. But there's one thing that you have total control of, and that is your character.
Yeah.
You could lose your health, you could lose your wealth, you could lose your beauty, you could lose your family, you can even lose your freedom, but you never lose your character, even under torture. And that is the most valuable advice I have ever had, because your character and your relationship you have with yourself, that is the shelter, that is your dignity, that is the shelter, the house that you have inside yourself, and it's the core of your strength.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
hope
And
it doesn't.
I think moments like this also, you know, it really brings out either the best in people or the worst in people, and people's character is really reflected in the way they respond to situations like this.
And by the way, character is something you build, you know. I
Yeah.
mean, people say, well, what my character? It's never too late to have your character, because
Yeah.
what your character means is to be truly honest with yourself, and that's what being in charge is. To be truly honest with yourself and to own whatever situation, whatever imperfection, whatever horrible thing. It's like you're being diagnosed with cancer. You know, you have no choice but say, okay, this is true. The doctor will do that. I can do that. But owning it and not being afraid and throwing the fear in the wastepaper basket, that the situation is the same. But if you don't have the fear or the anger or the blame or the shame, I mean, then it's easier. So also shame. We should all forget about being shameful. It's shameful. It's don't be ashamed of going bankrupt. Don't be ashamed of losing your job. Don't be ashamed of the situation. It's the same for everybody at different levels. And sometimes you look across the room and you think, oh, this person looks at you and you are the person across the room. So
Yeah.
just focus on your situation.
Yeah. There was a time, Diane, when your business, back in the day, was almost going bankrupt, right? How
Many.
did, yeah, how did you, like, for all those young entrepreneurs or businesses that were are facing challenges. Like, how did you navigate that situation where,
I'm navigating this situation right now. Everyone is navigating that
yeah,
situation right now. So you have to say, okay, what is the situation? Let's not do things because that's the way we used to do it. Let's just say what it is today. How do I deal with it and make changes?
yeah, yeah. So as we look
There is
ahead,
no playbook right now. There's
no,
not a valid playbook. I mean,
no,
when I first started my business, there were 1,000, at least 1,000 department stores in America. In every city, there was a wonderful department store that was owned by a family, and then they built a branch, and then another branch, and it was amazing. I mean, I lived that. I discovered that as a young girl in America. I would travel and I would, study the map of America and learn it. And but then they all got merged. They opened too many branches. They do that. Then they had to sell, and then it was one company. And then at the end, they all belonged to one company. And then that company get this. And then all of a sudden, before you know, the most prestigious stores are going bankrupt.
yeah,
And because of rent, because of this, because of that. So you can't go with the old playbook.
mhm,
Same for magazines. So many magazines don't exist anymore. If you go to a fashion show, if you look at a picture of a fashion show, of the first rows of of a fashion show, most of those people are no longer around. So don't look for the old playbook. And if you start fresh and try to talk to, use Instagram, use things that you can control, and try to find your own little community. Because when
mhm,
you build a community, you build power.
mhm,
When you lose the power, when you lose the community, you lose the power.
yeah. What about fashion shows, Diane? Like, the shows in June have been canceled, the men's shows, and the ones in September are a big question mark. What do you think is going to happen to fashion shows?
I've said this for years, and people were very upset that I said that. Originally, the fashion shows, as we know them, they were fashion show trade fashion shows. You would have the press come, and they would, write a review. There were a few photographers. They would take pictures. Only one or two pictures would appear in the newspaper. And so you waited, and then magazine would take notes, and then, magazine, as they were building their issues, later they would know what to do, what to photograph and everything. And it would take 6 months. Now, when the social media happened and you started to have influencers, all these influencers who have millions of people to listen to them, and they go on a fashion show and they take pictures, and it goes all around the world, but the consumer can only have it 6 months later. Somehow something is not right. So I think fashion shows are beautiful things because it's a wonderful way to dream and to see. But I think that the fashion shows will eventually be more consumer driven, so that people can see it, dream, enjoy, and buy it.
Yeah. So do you think that the industry show is over?
I don't know that. I have no idea. And that's why I'm happy I no longer am in charge of something, because I wouldn't know what to say. But
Yeah.
I think a lot of the things, as you say, even in sustainability, a lot of the things with the corona are forcing us to accept certain things,
Yeah.
and sustainable. There are many ways of dealing with sustainable. But now I realize that, for example, in my case, I have one iconic dress, which is the wrap dress. Well, a dress that I actually made 45 years ago. That dress, not the same, that dress, maybe now in real or vintage stores, and may have had already three lives in three different generations, and is sold at the same price as today. So for me, that is sustainable,
Yeah.
So there's many ways of sustainable is basically something you don't throw away, or
Mhm.
that doesn't give you to waste.
There's actually a question here from someone named Adriana, and she's asking your advice on how a designer can create their own voice and look and feel like you did with the wrap dress. Like how does a designer discover that one thing that they become known for?
You know, if you had met, when I did the wrap dress,
Yeah.
if I had thought that dress, because people think I made the wrap dress made me,
Yeah.
and never in 1,000 years would I have thought that would be my claim to fame. When I first had that job in that printing factory in Como, and I was sitting and learning everything about how you make a print and how you balance the colors and the color palettes and all of that. I never thought I would even use that. I never thought that this would be my use. And then it was. And then because I didn't have money, I modeled my own dress. And because I didn't this, that. And then, I would go and visit, and I would go in some towns in Texas or whatever. And the fashion editor, I would have an interview. And then I would read the article, and they had this preconceived idea about I was a Park Avenue princess and all of that. And I kept on, well, that's not really me. So I got to learn that. And so I was always a little provocative in interviews, but at least it was my own voice. And so gradually I created my own voice because I wanted to make sure that I wasn't somebody else's voice. And that's how it happened. I mean, I didn't have it all planned. I did not. The only thing that I had planned is that I know for sure that I wanted to be a woman in charge. I wanted to be a woman who is in charge of her life, who could pay her bills and that. But other than that, I had no idea that door in the printing factory in Como would be my door.
It's like what Steve Jobs said at that really famous commencement speech that he gave. He said, you can only connect the dots looking backwards, because
That's right.
looking forwards, you don't know, but you realize when you look backwards and you can understand how the different things and the different doors that open and the different experiences you had.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely. But that's why another advice I would give Adriana or everybody, be true to yourself. Be true to yourself. Listen to hear everyone else, but listen to yourself. Because if you make a mistake and you listen to yourself, it's fine. You take the blame. But if you listen to somebody else and you did not what you wanted to say and it didn't work out, you won't forgive yourself. So no matter what, now more than ever, have a relationship with yourself. Be your best friend. Be hard on yourself, but also be good on yourself.
Yeah. Being kind to ourselves at this time is really important because there's so much stress and pressure in this situation. There's, increased levels of anxiety. People are worried about their loved ones and their parents, people that they care about who might be unwell. So in this whole process, we only can get through it if we're also kind to ourselves and, we take care of ourselves. And I think, I think about... Go ahead.
The best way to be kind to yourself, you have to be like you are to your children. You have to be kind to yourself, but you also have to make sure you're not delusional. Yeah. So you have to make sure that you see the truth and you make the best of it.
Yeah. And I think being really aware of the reality, the brutal reality of this situation in some cases. I mean, I think some people in situations like this can kind of become like a deer in headlights, and you just don't, there's so much to take in and so much change happening all at once that you kind of, you lose the ability to kind of grasp what's actually happening. And something I've been talking to our team a lot about is like, this is an unprecedented global crisis, unlike anything we've seen, and so, in that process, we need to be, while being very aware of what's going on, we also it's even more important that we take care of ourselves because, I don't think the end is near. I think we're still just at the very beginning of this situation. It's going to be some time yet before we find a way to navigate through this.
I completely agree. But also what we all, through the day, you wake up and you say, is this real? And then you put the news, and the news look like it's a movie. I mean, you can't really believe what you're watching. And then you turn it up and you do your own thing, what you're doing, and then you're focusing on that. And then again, you have, reality comes back. So I think all of us during the day, throughout the day, our temperature and outlook and mood changes.
Yeah, it really does.
So this Imran, will be a historical conversation. It'll be very interesting that we have again this conversation in a few months and see how we feel and see where we stood with then, or what will we say.
That's why I really love your idea of like capturing the thoughts and feelings that you're thinking about in this moment, so you can go back and trace kind of how you've changed and what you've learned along the way. Because I really, I was saying to my team that BoF was actually created during the last crisis. It was the time, the global financial crisis. That's when BoF first really started. And, I think there are innovations and there are interesting things that you learn in a moment like this. And I think, I can go back to those very early articles and things that I was writing back then, because in a way that was where I was capturing my ideas. And I can really see how the original purpose and voice and mission of the business of fashion was created in that last crisis. So in a way, this is another moment that can shape, not just BoF, but every company out there, every career of every person out there can be shaped during this moment if you look at it with a sense of opportunity.
Totally. And my advice to anyone when you go through a crisis is write your diary. I mean, write your diary. I mean, you think it's not worth it, you think it's not important, and maybe what you write is not so good, but somehow to sit in front and to write it, it's always something comes out of you. But I will bet you that most of the people looking back will discover that they like themselves better than they thought. And I do think that
what do you mean they like themselves better than they thought?
I think that the discovery of yourself is an amazing discovery. And we never have the time to give to it. And I think that if every day you give a little time to think about you, to think about from the moments of your child, just think about you, and because you are always the same thing. I'm an old woman, and I go from room to room with all my books in my hands. I used to do that when I was 5. You are really the same person. So spend time discovering yourself. Spend time with yourself, enjoying yourself, and I bet you that at the end you will like yourself better than you thought you would.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Diane, on that note, I'm going to bid you farewell. It's always so nice to chat with you, and I would love to talk to you in a few months and catch up on the things that you've learned and share some perspectives with a bit more time as we go through this. I hope you're staying safe and healthy.
And you all be safe too. And thank you very much for having me. And I hope, I hope I give hope.
I just want to come on here quickly and say that honestly, I wrote so much that you said, but this was, I think, for me, and I've watched you speak at a few different events, and I follow your work and in charge events and everything. But for me, I felt it almost makes me emotional because I just feel such genuinity that comes from you, and such a personal talk. And I felt like you were talking directly to me. And even though, so it's crazy, but
maybe it's because you're wearing a red dress.
Possibly, yeah. But with that being said, what you said about like who you are as you get to know yourself, I'm a mom of 2 toddlers, and that I see that in me now, you know, like be able to cook for them and finding like that I'm really good as a storyteller for my kids and all of these things. And you know, it's thank you so much.
Yeah.
God bless you.
There's a lot of wisdom in your experience, Diane. Thank you for sharing with us. I think everyone will treasure all those nuggets, those little nuggets of wisdom as we try to navigate this situation. So
Thank you. And Imran, you know, I don't know, for all of you who may not know Imran, he's a very, people are terrified of Imran. He's a very, he is, because he's a very, very good journalist, and he goes right through. He's like an X-ray. So, but he's also a person who really has a heart and intelligence and passion. And so it's always a pleasure to talk to you.